body diagrams. You listen to me yammer at you about electronic this, that, and the other whiz-bangery. But honestly, what I'm about to tell you is probably the most important thing of your 4 years here at UMaine. And yes, that's an egotistical statement, but I really believe it is true. And a lot of people don't get this information. So, you guys should be ahead of the power curve. All right. So, first disclaimer, I am not a tax professional, I am not an accountant, I do not know your personal financial situation. Legalese, legalese, legalese. Do your own due diligence. I'm going to tell you what's worked for me and for my wife, and hopefully will guide you in the future. Geek lesson number 1. Okay, you guys hopefully have a job lined up at graduation. And you probably got offers in like, I don't know, the 70-something thousand range. You're going to go out there, you're going to feel like Warren Buffett. You're going to get that first paycheck and go, oh my God, I'm freaking rich. Okay, you're not rich, okay? What you need to do is when you get out there, make yourself a budget and stick to it. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a budget based on my paycheck. I'm going to put my paycheck up, I'm going to put my mortgage payment up, and we're going to look at where all the money goes and how sadly little there is of it. Okay, the beauty of it is, in my no-money job as a teacher, it just so happens to correspond with entry-level engineer wages. So it's a good thing to look at. Oh, I can't believe I said that. You know, if I was back at Pratt & Whitney, I'd be making about $150K a year, and now I make 72. So clearly I am the dumbest one in the room, even though I'm up front. All right, so all the whining aside, okay, you need to have a budget because things like houses, wedding, cars, baby strollers, it's all going to come at you hot and heavy. So you got to be ready for it. Typical monthly finances. Okay, let's talk about what a kind of sort of budget looks like. So this was back when I made 60K a year. I was putting 15K a year into a 401K. And we're going to go through why that is the most important expense you're going to take out of your paycheck every single month. Okay? No health insurance. I wasn't, this was back when I forget who I was working for, but they covered all of my health insurance. And I was bringing home $2,700 a month. I had a $134,000 house. Can't believe it, $134K. 7% mortgage. No, the world did not end with a 7% mortgage like everybody jumps up and down and screams today. I was paying about $1,100 a month for it. I had a used car for 17 grand. I was paying $380 a month on that. $200 a month for electricity. My Pontiac cost me about $60 a month. You know, today you might have an average heating fuel cost of $160 a month, and maybe $400 a month for food. So you got $2,700 a month coming in. You got $2,300 going out. So do not be like the student that I bashed on one year, who got to graduation. Just before graduation, he went out and bought a $60,000 Silverado thinking he was going to be rich. And then I put this up on the board, and he went, where's Craigslist? I got to sell this thing. Okay, don't do that, guys. And notice, there's no student loan payments, mortgage insurance, credit card bills, entertainment, baby strollers, healthcare. None of that is in this. Okay? So be careful. Don't get yourself in over your heads. Okay, so this is actually a little bit outdated. This is my pay stub. You guys can't read this. I couldn't read it when I looked at the slides. But here's the important stuff. Okay, out of University pays me $6,154.23. I pay $1,161.14 in state and federal taxes out of that. Now here's what's different about my particular situation. I'm putting almost $2,200 a month into a 401k, 401(3)B retirement plan. Basically because my wife makes a whole lot more money than I do, so I can do that. When I was in your chairs back in the day, I was putting about $10K a year into a 401k. It's not great, but it works. The numbers work. The more you put in sooner, the better. I'm going to go through the math on why that is. Okay? So then, after-tax short-term disability, my take-home check is $33.8676. I have 10% taken out every month for a car payment. It goes right to my stock account. I don't see it, don't miss it. And I actually take home $3,048.08. That is what I take home every single month on a $72,000 income. Okay, you might be a little higher, a little bit lower, but your number is going to be darn near that. Okay? And then the one nice thing about working at UMaine, part of the reason I do this gig, other than it's important, okay? I'm not the kind of guy that can sit around working at Hudamaki making paper cups and then get to my deathbed and say, I made 1 billion paper cups. I was a success. Okay, that's not my thing. I can't do that. Okay? As much as I make no money and I bitch about it and whine and complain, okay, what I do here in this classroom is important. I can live with dying saying, I made a bunch of dumb geeks, smart geeks. I can live with that. Okay, so we got a really good plan. I put in 4%. The university puts in 10% of my pay, or about $7,300. Typical for industry is 2 to 3%. So do not pass up free money, guys. If you have a 401k matching at your company, take it. Take every bit of the money they're going to give you. If it's legit, take it. Don't leave money behind. Okay, geek lesson number 2. This one's important. This one is hugely important. Probably going to want to buy a house relatively soon after graduation. I get it. The housing market is totally nuts right now. It is stupid. I have a feeling we're going to have a good recession soon, and that's going to correct everything. It did in 2008. It did in 2000. It did in 1995. Okay? It happens. The old rule of thumb was always go with 2.5 times your income. I know, that may seem ridiculous. So if you make 60K, look at 150K houses. I get it. There's not a lot of 150K houses out there right now. Okay? I suspect there will be, but it isn't today. Okay? Do not trust the banks. Okay? I remember when I was back at Heidelberg Web Press in Nova, New Hampshire, I was making $55K a year, relatively new out of school, and I went to get pre-approved for a mortgage, and they pre-approved me for $220,000. And I went, are you out of your mind? I'll choke on $220,000. I can't pay that. But they offered it to me. Okay? Do not take it. Okay? Do a budget up front and do not get yourself hemmed in. Okay, this whole garbage right here of the banks offering more than you can pay, that is the thing that caused the 2008 housing crash. People didn't budget. They said, well, I was approved for it. I must be able to afford it. And then the monthly bills start rolling in and they go, I can't pay this. And it escalated. 2008 should have never happened. Never, ever happened. Okay, when you buy your first house, 30-year fixed is almost always the best way to go. Almost. Oh, one other caveat, let me get off track from my railing. Okay? In this class, you are free to ask any question you want. You want to talk about, is there sex after marriage? We'll talk about it. I don't care. Whatever question you want to ask that you would have never asked your parents, ask it now. All right, so back to my railings. Okay, 30-year fixed mortgage. 30-year fixed is great, okay, because it gives you a low monthly payment. I would never, ever, ever run a mortgage out for 30 years, only because you're going to pay a lot of money in compound interest. Every month you pay interest on that balance that's outstanding, okay? But if you get yourself in a bind, it's great to have that low payment. So let's say you buy a house for $200K. Again, my slides are a little old. And you do it at 5% on a 30-year. So normally you're going to pay back $386,513. Okay? A whole lot more than $200K. If you make one extra payment a year, you cut off 4 years and 8 months, and a total repayment goes down to $352,723. Okay? So that's a free new-to-me car, because cars are too darn expensive. They came out of just mortgage interest. So if you can squeeze off one extra payment, putting that payment on the principal, you get almost 5 years off your mortgage. If you can squeeze in 2 extra payments, paying on that principal, okay, you chop off 8 years. And you still have the flexibility of, if you have the refrigerator dies 1 month and you can't make extra, so what? You don't make the extra. Fine. That's all good. Okay? But if you make 2 extra payments on that $200K, you're going to save $56,597 in interest. It's important. Right now, my wife and I are doing double payments on our house. Our goal is no house payment in retirement, which for us is 7 years out. You wonder why I have gray hair. Here's my mortgage. Okay? Again, you can't leave that. The important thing, it breaks down to this. Principal, payment on the debt. As of the time that I took that snapshot, it was $621.10. Okay? We bought our house in '05 for $285,000. We refied it down to 2.375. And that principal and interest, okay, that is not fixed numbers. Okay? As you pay more and more, okay, you pay off that principal, and you end up putting more and more on the principal every month, and less goes toward interest. Okay, so it's going to feel like you're front-loaded on paying interest, which you are, should.
What does it mean to refinance?
Okay, so we took out a loan for $285,000 initially, and I think we took it out at 5.5% or 7%, something like that. And the rates went down because of 2008. So basically what we did is we took out another loan, we paid off the first loan, and we got a lower interest rate. Now, there's no free lunches. We had to pay a chunk of money to do that. So typically they say 1 point or 1%. So it cost us $2,900. Okay, so in exchange for $2,900, we get a lower monthly payment and lower overall interest payments. Excellent question, thank you.
When you initially got the mortgage, was it a VA loan and then you refinanced for another VA loan?
Yes.
Can you go conventional to VA? I don't know if you know.
You can, but you can only have one VA loan at a time.
Thanks.
Okay, so, and then my town taxes and homeowners insurance, it all gets rolled together. That's $662.92 a month. My monthly house payment is that. $1,678.38. Okay. A bunch of you guys are paying that much for an apartment in Orono, which just makes me sick. Okay, and you don't get any ownership off that. So as soon as you can get into a house, guys, get into a house. It is the single biggest driver toward long-term wealth that you can possibly do. Because you do not want to be paying rent in your retirement years. Okay, I can deal with that $662 a month. I do not want to be paying $2,000 or something like that out of my Social Security and 401k. Let's see. There's also a thing called mortgage insurance. Okay, so the loan grantors, the bank, they want to know you're going to pay it off. Okay, so you got to get mortgage insurance. It generally comes from Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, or at least he used to. I don't have a lot of experience with that. I'm prior military, I'm VA. VA guarantees my loans. That's it. That's one of the perks of having gone to the Middle East and gotten sand in my boots. You wonder how I got the way I am. Okay, loan interest. It is tax deductible, but it decreases over time as there is less outstanding debt. So when I was your age and I first got my first house, I would get my taxes done every year, and I'd get back like $10K in my tax refund. And it was all because of paying so darn much in mortgage interest. Yes,
Can you claim that if you take a standard deduction or you got it itemized?
got itemized. As soon as you got a house, you got it itemized.
Got it.
Okay. I live in the boonies out in East Nowhere, which works for me. You know, I can open up the back door, let an AK-47 round fly, and nobody's going to bat an eyelash. I like it like that. The good side of that is my city tax, my property tax is about $2,400 a year. If I was in Brewer, number one, I would not let an AK round fly in Brewer. That would be bad. But your taxes can also be much higher. Okay. For those of you that are from New Jersey who know all about property taxes, I don't know how people live there. Okay. So that may be a decision in where you want to live. Rural areas have lower tax rates. Not as convenient. They're not as nice for some things, but it does help the budget. Okay. And just remember, that $662.92, that my property insurance and taxes, it's never going away. I got a plan for that in my retirement. Okay, so that's got to come out of my Social Security and 401k. Geek lesson number 3. Buy a 3-year-old car, guys. Okay, new cars are stupidly overpriced. They are horrible. I remember I went to the Pontiac dealer many years ago, and I saw the new supercharged Grand Prix, and I thought, I'm gonna get one of those. And it was $27,000 back in the day for a supercharged Grand Prix. And they said it's going to be $700 a month, and I said, yeah, I don't want that. I just will not pay $700 a month. Okay, and there's a lot of people walking around now paying $1,100, $1,200, $1,500 a month for a car. No. Okay? So generally what I find, you buy a 3-year-old. They got like 45,000 miles. Back when I rode this, they were typically half the cost of a new car. And the half might still be true, but they're still way overpriced. Okay? So I keep multiple cars on the road at any one time. I've got my crappy 2010 Honda Pilot, which is full of rust holes. And, you know, if somebody backs into it here on campus, I don't care. I really don't care. Okay, but I do have some nice rides. I got the GTO. I've got my Jeep Rubicon that never gets wet, never goes out in the sun. My wife laughs at me, but that's the way I roll. Okay, so you can have nice toys, but just have a beater. Beaters are great. Me personally, I expect alternators to fail every 120,000 miles and starters at 150. I proactively replace them. Shoot.
Your insurance payment, does it cover all three, or do you take the, like, two other cars that are like for fun?
Okay, so we actually lump, we've got USAA, which is military insurance, and we lump the house, the cars, the camp, everything all together into one big monthly insurance payment.
Okay.
Yeah, it does save money when you bundle. Would you put $500 into a $500 car? My answer, hell yes. Okay? Because my thinking is, given the cost of car payments, if you can get more than 2 months out of that repair, you spend less than 2 car payments. Put the $500 in the $500 car. I mean, guys, literally, on my beater daily driver, I literally drive it until it breaks in half. Nobody gets my cars after me. They go right to Greenpoint Salvage, if they can make it that far. I literally drive them until the frame breaks in half. If I don't get at least 300,000, I'm totally disappointed. Geek lesson number 4. Guys, you're going to be unemployed. Deal with it. Just accept that. I've been laid off / fired twice. The first time hit me pretty hard, okay, because I am one egotistical SOB. I always believed in the Top Gun edge of no points for second best, and that's the way I've always rolled. Okay. So when they walk in and give you that pink slip the first time, it's really going to hurt. Be ready for it. There is absolutely no stability in the world outside of your bank account. That's it. Let me just lay it out plain and hard for you. Okay? So all those days of doing 40 years at General Motors, getting a gold watch at the end, that is all gone. Guys, junk happens. I've seen buyouts and mergers. I got caught in that once. That one I actually got to step out before the company completely imploded. So, I'll give you another story. I was working at DuPont Medical in Newark, Delaware. I was the up-and-coming rock star, doing great, but I hated Delaware. I tried to go to the beach, the traffic was crazy. My homeowners association was a nightmare. I was a nightmare for them. I had way too much fun with it. It's like poking a bear, sometimes it's just so much fun, you gotta do it. All right, so finally I said, okay, I'm going back home. So I walk into my boss's office and he says, Steve, I'm glad you're here. You've been doing such a good job, we're gonna promote you to engineer level 2. And I said, Jim, I'm giving my notice today. So I came up to Maine again, down in the Scarborough area, with this cool startup company. We were doing CD and DVD replication stuff. Third day I'm there, they let go 1/3 of the entire company. And I went, all righty. So luckily my shit stories are battery powered. All right, so literally it was 1/3 of the company got let go, and let me fire it up, because we're going to get through the geek lessons. So 1/3 of the company got let go, and over the course of that year, we literally lost the entire company. I was lucky. I saw the handwriting on the wall. I knew we weren't going to make it, and I jumped over to Brad Whitney, did 5 years there. So, guys, as much as I'm telling you, contribute to a 401k. We're gonna get to why that's important in just a minute. Actually, why am I even doing this? Probably the internet service is down too, because the router's probably not powered.
I got Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
You got Wi-Fi? All right. As soon as this comes up, we'll keep going. Because actually, the next part is the most important part. So I want to talk to you guys about compound interest. So, let me just kind of wing it here. So make sure that you always have some amount of bank account to rely on, because you're going to get fired. I don't care how good you are, how much you think you're the top gun, you will get fired. Mergers, buyouts, acquisitions, changing technology, it happens. So what I would tell you guys is this. Okay, you're going to go to work for somebody. Always earn your paycheck. Okay, you get an assignment, do it the very best you can for your employer. Okay, don't cut any corners. That said, always be looking around where you're going to go next. If you have a company that has a training plan, if they can give you a master's degree at night, something like that, and they'll pay for it, take it. Okay? Because when that day comes and they say, oh, and I'm sorry, man, your job's been cut, we just don't need you anymore. Elon Musk says you're out of here. What you should say at that point is, cool, I'm going to the Bahamas for 3 months, and I'll be back and I'll think about it then, which is literally what I do now. Okay, the other thing I want to tell you, okay, I recommend you should all have $20,000 in the bank. And I know how hard that is. When I was in your shoes and I tried to save my first $10K out of college, you don't know how many times I put the beer back and didn't buy the beer at the grocery store so I could get to that $10K. Okay, but I got there. And it should be $10K or $20K today. Cash. Okay, I'm not talking stocks. Don't get greedy on this one. Greedy is for later. Okay. Make sure you got 20K so when they cut your position, you just said, cool, I'm good. You should always have like a 6 to 12 month slush fund of cash so that you're not panicking when you get let go. Okay, geek lesson number 5. Here's the big one. Max out a retirement plan or Roth IRA, which I've been alluding to this whole way along. Okay, so 401k, it's a retirement plan. I know, you guys don't even want to think about that. You can't imagine how far that is in the future. But let me tell you, it feels like 15 minutes ago I was sitting in your chairs. It comes up on you really, really fast. Do not say, I'm going to do it later. Later comes up really quick. So, 401k, what they do is you put in money pre-tax. So if you're making 58K a year, you put away 18K into your 401K, you get taxed at the $40,000 a year rate. My wife and I just did our taxes, and let's see, I had a reportable income of $54,000. I make 72. Okay? And my wife looked at that and went, "Why are you working? That's not enough to bother with." Okay? So I get taxed at the $54,000 a year rate. So you can be one of those awful people that people complain about, the rich don't pay any taxes. Yeah, exactly. I do that. It's a good thing. So, you put in this money, you do it pre-tax, and then it grows. You put it in stock funds, mutual funds, bond funds, something like that, and it grows and grows and grows, and you pay the taxes when you pull it out. Okay, now, there's another retirement vehicle called a Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is kind of the inverse. Okay, you pay the taxes up front, you put the money in, it grows over time, and then when you pull it out, it's tax-free. So there's two ways to look at this. The 401k is great if you think tax rates are going to stay relatively the same as they are now. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. I don't know. If you think the taxes are going to go up in the future, so we're going to end up more like a European kind of tax system, which is a whole lot higher, okay, then the Roth is the better option. Up until you make about 150K a year, you can do both, okay? So I highly encourage you, do the 401k. Then what I always did, I would take my tax refund and I would max out my Roth every year. And that worked pretty nice when I was your ages. So just in case you don't know what a yes.
What do you mean by maxing out, like, your retirement? Is there...
Okay, so there's a maximum amount of money nice. There is a maximum amount of money that you can put into the retirement every year. For you guys, I think it's $20,500. For me, it's $26,500 because I'm an old duffer. So you can't just put like your whole paycheck in it. You can't do that. Yeah, good question.
I have a good question.
Shoot.
So IRAs have a significantly lower limit than 401ks. You know why? IRAs like 7,000 this year, 401ks 20.
No earthly idea.
Yeah, I never realized.
IRAs just, unless your company doesn't have a 401k or retirement plan, I don't see what the point of it is. You can put a lot more money in pre-tax because it's there, it's available. So that seems like a far better vehicle to me. But, if you're self-employed or something like that, okay, IRA would have a place in that situation. Yes?
Do you have someone do your taxes for you, an accountant or something?
Absolutely. No, I go to H&R Block. I just give it to them, say, here you go. Because I do E-Trade and that kind of thing. And when you start getting into stuff like, I bought this block of IBM on this date and this block of IBM on that date, and which one's cost basis, that just makes my head hurt. I'd rather just put it in front of them, give them $200 and say, done, file. Next thing I was going to say, just so it's said, guys, do you know what a share of stock is? It's partial ownership in a company. So if I have a company that's worth $1 million and I issue 1 million shares of common stock, stock price is going to be $1. Okay, so the more you own, the more percent of the company you own. Which, that one kind of gets me going on another story. So you've seen all these signs around, UMaine should divest from oil. I look at that and I gotta kind of laugh at that one. Because I had somebody call me up one day and they said, "Oh, do you think UMaine should divest from, carbon-producing companies?" I said, "Dude, let's think about this for a minute. So you can divest and you can have absolutely no control over the situation, or you can be a stockholder for ExxonMobil and you can tell them what to do at their board meetings." So, you know where the original photovoltaic panels came from? Bet you guys know. Chevron. Back in the 1970s, during the first oil embargo, when the Saudis said, "Yeah, we're not shipping you oil." And we had gas lines and it was absolutely horrible and it kicked off big inflation. Okay. Chevron said, "We better have something to sell when oil goes away." So they started getting into this cool little chunks of silicon that generated electricity. And that's what they were going to sell. Amazing. So, somebody on the board of directors said, "Hey Chevron, you better have a product for when oil dries up. So if you want to push green energy and you want to make the oil company do it, if you're a voting board member, own the stock." The person was totally flattered, guys. They were horrified that I would say that. Take control of them? Tell them what to do? Yeah. Stockholder. That's what they do. All right, Social Security. You got to think about this one, guys. I know it's way too far off. It's this nebulous thing out in the cloud. So what I would show you is that you can file for Social Security at age 62, and if I do that, I'm going to make $1,674 a month. I'll get these screens up as soon as I can, but we're going to run out of time. So $1,600 a month. Okay, that is not a lot of money, so do not think you're going to live on Social Security. If I go to full retirement age, it gets a little better. I get $2,600, so I get an extra $1,000 a month. And if I'm not drooling on myself by age 70, then I would get $3,200 a month. My plan is I'm going to check out at 65 and call it good. So make sure that you pay into the system, guys. Do not be one of these people that works under the table their whole life. Okay, I see a lot of people out where I live, and they're trying to get by on $400 a month, $500 a month, because they worked under the table their whole life. So don't be one of those people. Social Security's got enough problems of its own, so don't rely on a shaky system. Okay, key lesson number 6. Power of compound interest. Let's do a little thought experiment. So, Aunt Sarah gives you $100 at graduation. And you decide you're going to put it into an S&P 500 fund or a Dow 30 fund. How much do you think that's going to be worth at retirement? Okay, so the S&P brings back between 7 and 9% every year. How much is that $100 going to be worth? $2,572. Because every year the balance is going to be multiplied by 1.07. So it's not linear. It starts off and it kind of looks linear, but then it goes at the end because of compounding. So let's say you're really smart. And I don't know, maybe you got some help. So you max out your 401k allowance every year. And you don't do anything cool. You don't do Robinhood, you don't do, venture capital, you don't do anything. You just throw it on the S&P 500. Okay, the S&P 500 is a composite of the 500 largest companies in the U.S. If you do that, if you put in $23,500 until age 70, how much money do you think you got?
Isn't it upwards of 2 million towards the end?
8.4. So you'll end up with 8.4 million, and in retirement, if you just want to live off the gains, you're going to have to struggle along on $588,000 a year, never touching the principal. Okay? Aha! Security. Okay, so this is Aunt Sarah. This is what happens. You put in $100, you never touch it. It goes up to $25.72 if you retire at age 70. Okay, what I just told you, you put in $23,500 every year until age 70, you end up with 8.4 million. 7% of that per year is 588K. Let's say you're less responsible, and these numbers are a little bit old. So you max it out, actually putting in 18.5. We did this example of 18.5. So you put in 18.5 for the first 5 years of your career, so $92,500, and you never put in another dime. Never even look at it. And all you've done is put it on the S&P 500. By the time you're age 70, it grows to $2 million. You've done nothing fancy, guys. Okay? And you're going to have to struggle along on $140K a year in retirement if you live on just the interest. Okay, now let's look at a typical example. You're some idiot who saves nothing, and you get to 10 years out from retirement, and you want to have $1 million by the time you retire. Okay, you got to put in $73K a year at 7%. Okay, I don't know who can do that. I can't do that. My wife and I can't do that combined. Do not say, I'll do it later. Okay, it's really easy to put in 18.5, even for you guys, early on, and just let it compound. So when I was sitting in your chair, the Dow Jones, let's go back to when I graduated high school. The Dow was at 5,000. And up until certain government agencies started monkeying around, the Dow was up at 45,000. The Dow went up by a factor of 9 since I was in high school. So these kinds of big compounding are absolutely true. Okay? I always advocate you just go buy the S&P 500 or buy the Dow 30. That's what Warren Buffett says to do. I have tried to beat the S&P 500, I don't know how many times. I can't do it. Okay, as great as I am, can't do it. So you might decide you want to go buy some AbbVie, some really nice dividend stock. You might want to buy this, that, or the other. Long haul, trust corporate greed. Okay, the S&P 500 will always win. Okay, I'm going to run over on time. If you guys have to leave, no harm, no foul. This is actually a good video. This guy, Jaspreet Singh, I love, his hairstyle. Okay, I want to imitate that someday. This guy is an attorney. He's a YouTube talking head, but he's all about the numbers.
The hidden tax. Do you ever feel like whenever you get a raise, it just isn't enough? You make more money, but you don't really see a difference in your bank account? Well, that's kind of by design. Take a look. Our money today cannot buy what it could 10 years ago, and our money is very different than what it was 100 years ago. Take a look. If we look between the years 2019 and 2024, we saw the median household income in America grow by around 20%, while at the same time, reported inflation came in at around 23%, which means if we trust these inflation numbers, the prices of things on average went up by 23%, while you only got a 20% raise if you are a median earner in America, which means you got a raise, but you're poorer now after the raise than you were before. You can start to see the problem. While over the same time, the stock market, more specifically the S&P 500, grew by 80%, which means if you are an investor, you got a windfall. Not only did you see your wealth grow faster than your salary, but your wealth also grew faster than the price growth of things. Now you might say, well, Dustin, this is just because of the pandemic. Well, let's look back in history a little bit further. Let's take a look at the last 5 decades, right before the big inflation post-pandemic. Between 1971 to 2021, we saw household income in America grow by around 700%, which sounds nice, but we have to compare this growth in income to the price growth of things, because we know that just because you got a raise doesn't mean much if the prices of things are rising faster than your incomes. Well, over the same 5 decades, the average new car sold grew by around 840%. The median house in America sold grew by around 1,200%. The average cost of going to a public 4-year university, 1 year of it, grew by around 2,000%, while investors who invested their money in the stock market saw their wealth grow by around 4,000%. And again, this is taking a look at the S&P 500. What does this mean? Well, if you're a median earner, you just kept following the advice that everybody told you, work hard, save some money. Yeah, you got a raise, but you might notice that after this raise, you can't buy as much stuff as you used to before. This is what I call the hidden tax. It's inflation. Inflation disproportionately hurts the people that don't understand how it works, because what inflation does, the byproduct of inflation is it makes things more expensive. Now you might know that, but here's the part that a lot of people don't know. Well, inflation also helps increase your wages. What we have seen through time is that wages have not kept up with the price growth of things. This has not happened just post-pandemic. This has been happening decade after decade after decade. And the real kicker here is that between 1971 and 2021, household income has grown 7-fold. But household income is also now based off of 2-income households. Back in the early 1970s, it was based off of 1-income households, because the way it worked back in the early 1970s was the man went to work and the woman didn't. So this income growth that we're seeing, this 700%, is not only based off of the raise that you got, it's also based off of twice as many income earners in one household. And even though you have twice as many income earners in one household, the income growth that we have seen hasn't kept up with the price growth of things, and it hasn't kept up with the wealth growth of investors. This is the hidden tax. It benefits investors, while the average person doesn't even know it's happening. This is why it's so important for people to understand this, because the wealthy understand this, and they're taking advantage of this system, and they've been doing that, but everybody else gets left behind. Now, for those of you...
Okay, that's the important gist of it. If you want to go in and watch the rest of it, it's actually a really good video. Jaspreet's pretty cool. I follow a lot of his stuff.
do that are the hidden tax.
in general, this stuff is spot on. Okay, if you gotta leave, take off. If you want to listen to me keep yammering, by all means stay. Okay, so what Josh Breach just said, really important. You want to do long-term wealth, you got to invest, okay? Because wages are not keeping up. It's just a sad fact of life. Okay, and if you want to be really comfortable in your retirement, like I'm going to be, you got to start early. You got to use that compound interest stuff. Okay, so I showed you a couple examples. You know, all you got to do is put a bunch of money on the S&P. Just keep doing it. Just do it. And it's pretty easy to come out okay. So you're going to say, great, I'm going to go out, I'm going to buy a Ferrari when I retire, and I'm going to be this gazillionaire, and everything's going to be great. Well, just remember that inflation chomps its way into that. So the loaf of bread that's $4 today is going to be $9.75 when you guys retire. Personally, I'm going to grow my own bread fresh one every week, but hey, that's how I roll. Okay, geek lesson number 7. So great, you get all invested in the stock market, and you know something like right now happens. Okay, stock market corrects, it goes down. Okay, turn the radio off, guys. I go home and I listen to my wife, and she screams about how many hundreds of thousands of dollars she's lost. It doesn't matter. You have not lost anything until you sell the stock. So, back in 1929, if you could have gone and walked down the street and seen all these people losing their collective junk and said, hey, here's $100 for that 1,000 shares of IBM. You know what that'd be worth today? You'd be on Mansion Road down in Rhode Island. So, just turn the radio off, don't listen to it. The market's going to go up, the market's going to go down, just keep buying. I like Josh Breed's little phrase, ABB, always be buying. Just buy. It's called dollar averaging in proper terms. Okay? You buy the lows, you buy the highs, but in general, you come out with that nice 7%, the noise goes away, and it's all good. Okay, but some of you just won't be able to deal with that. Okay, the ups and the downs, my wife can't. I keep telling her, you know, don't keep a bunch of money in the checking account, keep the emergency fund on. She can't deal with that. If you can't deal with that, what you could do is you could buy something like Verizon, just buy the stock and sit on it. Okay, when I bought AbbVie, the guys who make Botox, they were paying me 5% a year just to hold on to their stock. So part of what I'm going to do to buy Jeep parts in retirement is I saved up a bunch of money. I'm going to buy some stock. They're going to pay me dividends every quarter, and I'm going to go off and buy Jeep parts. And they will do that forever, or until I sell the stock. So if you can't handle the turbulence, look at dividends. If you've got something like Chevron imploding or Caterpillar imploding, okay, you got bigger problems than worrying about dividends. Those companies are not going away. Okay, geek lesson number 9. And this is starting to get out more into the, you know, not mainstream, but my advice. So right after I graduated college, we had a big ice storm, and basically nobody could move. There was no power. All my friends that had apartments, they all came over to my house that I was renting, and we all sat around, because I had a fireplace, and we all stayed warm by the fireplace. Guys, when it comes to the world, nobody's coming to rescue you. Okay? Get good with that fact. You're on your own. So one of the first things I say is buy a generator. I remember when we first moved into our house in Amherst, we didn't have a generator, and telling a nurse to go pee in the field. Okay? So the very next day, I went out and bought a generator and I wired it into the house. Now I've got a diesel 27K and I can power half the town. So when she decides that she wants to do laundry but there's no electricity, the diesel doesn't even care. It just sits there and runs. I've literally been baking bread while she's doing the laundry with the diesel running, and the big Kubota doesn't care. So plan ahead. Simple things like, having a month's worth of groceries on hand, having a generator with some fuel, it makes all the difference in the world. And I always tell people, power your generator with whatever you keep with. So in my case, I've got home heating oil, which is chemically identical to diesel fuel. So if I get into a real bind, I go down, I siphon out 20 gallons out of my furnace, or my furnace oil tank, and I can go throw it into the diesel generator and fire it up. No problem. Okay. I would encourage you guys, get an industrial generator once you settle down. Okay, those cheap little things that you buy at Walmart or Home Depot with those crappy little engines, they're only built to last 300 to 600 hours. They're terrible. They're better than nothing, but they're terrible. They wear out. Okay, my industrial Kubota, on the other hand, I bought it with 9,000 hours on it. It runs like a Swiss watch, never skips a beat. And I bought it for, let's see, what did I buy it for? Did I say? I think I bought it for like $4,000. And it came on a flatbed truck, I had to go out with the tractor. And I'm trying to pick it up, and this beast is so big that the back end of my 46 horse tractor is coming off the ground as I'm trying to lift my generator off the trailer. And I barely back it up, I get it down, I put it within an inch of the ground, and I slowly inch it over to its spot in the barn. And of course my wife looks at it and goes, "What the hell did you do? What'd you buy?" It was literally powering an oil rig down in Texas. Overkill is underrated, folks. And I always keep 275 gallons of diesel on hand, because that's what the tractor runs on, that's what the generator runs on, that's what the home furnace runs on. Diesel's great that way. So, be prepared for things to go wrong in life, because they're gonna happen, so be prepared. All right, that's all I got for slides. I'll open it up for questions. You guys want to know about, what it took to start my business? Do you guys want to know about, what do you want to know about?
Where did you source that generator?
eBay.
Really?
Yeah. There was literally a company that was getting rid of used oil and gas equipment. And all I had to do when I got it home, I hooked up the internal fuel tank, cranked it over, she started right up to it. Beautiful. Love that toy. What else? Investment stuff, money stuff. Yes.
If you can go back in time, would you put yourself to be self-employed rather than simply employment in a company or like that?
I would encourage all of you guys to just go out and work for a company to start. Get yourself a nest egg. Get yourself acclimated to how the world works. Then try doing a side hustle. If that kind of works out, you start making more and more money, and you can replace your income, then you're ready to go work for yourself. When I had my company, I was developing equipment where you could take wood, you throw it in this thing, you light it on fire, it produced hydrogen and carbon monoxide, and you could run a generator or any kind of internal combustion on wood chips. And I was doing pretty good. I've got equipment all over the world. I was known everywhere. I had a great reputation, but the margins weren't good enough. I was working my butt off for no money. So I called it quits. And then I became a college teacher. I don't know how that happened. Snuck up on me. And here I am. Yeah, Tom.
What advice do you have about like work-life balance, right? Like, you know, go out and work for a company. How much are you willing to sort of sell your soul for that extra cash?
So I am from a different generation. I am from the generation of read is good. I'm a guy who used to work for Johnson & Johnson on the weekends, making $100 an hour as a custom programmer. Until you get that nest egg, you don't have any work-life balance. You just work. Once you do get the nest egg, once you do have some security, then you can think about work-life balance. I didn't find it all that bad. I mean, when I was at Pratt Whitney, I was the biggest fuck off I heard come down the pike. I literally would take hour lunches, I'd go walking for an hour in the afternoon, and I was still holding down 2.5 people's worth of work. I don't know how that was. I don't know what the average person does there. But besides slamming Pratt Whitney, I don't know how to answer that. I really don't. Like even with this job, okay, this job will actually just, you can work to death being a college instructor. They always want one more thing. And eventually I had to get to the point where I just said, no, there's not enough hours. I don't know how to answer that. You're going to have to work through that one on your own. Tyler?
With most engineering companies that you've worked for, you found that most like to do 410s instead of like 5/8s for just like hours.
See, for me, it was 5/8 all the way, or actually it was more like 5/10s all the way. And that's all it was. You just went in. Now, I will say there were times, I'm not a good afternoon person. My brain turns to mush around 4:30. I could stay until 6, but I'm not productive. So I leave. I mean, I'm not going to put in a bunch of big effort if I'm not productive and actually getting something out of it. So that's why, I see these guys going off to SpaceX and Tesla and all these fancy hoity-toity companies with, big image issues. Nah, no. I don't do that. I love the 100-person companies where they're big enough to pay a fair market wage, but not so big that you got a lot of bureaucracy to play with. The problem with that is that 100-person companies are primed for the next stage of capitalization. That's when the owner of the company is generally still in charge, but they're ready to sell out to the next level fish. Okay? So like when I was at the CD and DVD company, the original founder was still in charge. That whole downsizing and failing and eventual sell-off, the company was sold to the next biggest market player in the DVD industry at the time. It's just how the world works. And that's part of why that job ended. Tom?
Would you rather work hourly or salary? Or if you're shopping around for a job and you get
It totally depends. So like being salary here at the university, I can tell you I put in a lot more than 40 hours. I mean, the amount of grading and the amount of experiment design and stuff that goes on behind the scenes for the 50 minutes here at the podium is huge. Okay? If I could be paid hourly for that, oh yeah, I'd be making bank. It'd be beautiful. honestly say though, at our level of technical expertise, I haven't seen a lot of hourly jobs. Other than when I worked for Kelly doing that programmer gig for Johnson & Johnson. I just don't think it's going to be an option for us. Other questions?
So I kind of hear the two best ways to build wealth are stock market, buying a house. Do you think it's as important to buy a house early, like where you buy stocks, you get that compounding advantage, or you think pumping the brakes in the house for a little bit is fine?
It's hard to say right now. The real estate market is so overvalued, it's ridiculous. But every month, if you're losing $1,600 in rent, that's a strong argument to just go buy. That's when you just gotta do the math. So I would not want to be in your chairs right now. It's great being old. Because when I got my third job, when I got on with DuPont Medical down in Delaware, they gave me $25,000 as a moving bonus. And I literally threw everything I owned in the duffel bag in the back of my car. I pocketed the 25 grand. And that became the down payment on the first house that I bought for $120K. That was good. Okay. You guys probably aren't going to be able to do that. Because certainly moving reimbursements aren't as good anymore. And houses are a lot more expensive. So yeah, we were living large back in the day. What else? It's going to be interesting times for you guys. I'm going to go off to the woods and grow apples and, bake bread. You guys have the future of AI and all the other techie stuff that's coming along. I would strongly advise you guys to stay on this AI thing. As much as it makes my skin crawl, and I'm not using it, it is the hot technology. So when I was in your chairs, solid modeling was the new hot technology back in 1991. Okay. So I got on, I learned solid modeling backward and forward. I learned solid modeling customization programming, and I was making huge money out of it. And that's what allowed my career to be very stable and go from high-paying gig to high-paying gig to high-paying gig. Because I had that special skill that not a lot of people had, that the market was looking for. That could be AI for you guys. Okay. It's certainly not solid modeling today. Everybody assumes you know how to solid model, and just everybody's doing it from junior high on. So stay on that new cool tech so that you stay relevant and desirable longer. What else?
What was your best financial year that you can remember, and what kind of led to that?
Oh, that was absolutely my last year at Pratt & Whitney. When I was making $72K a year back in 2000, that was big money. I was living large. Life was good. I had that little house for $134,000. I had a crazy ex-girlfriend, but besides that, she wasn't that bad at the time. So yeah, that was my best year. And like Jasper was saying, wages have stagnated. So I was making 72. I came up here to be the engineering manager at a heat pump company. I took a pay cut all the way down to $60K a year. And I stayed right at 60 for like 15 years. Okay? And stuff didn't get any cheaper in those 15 years. But I was smart enough to have had a precursor of the old heat speech, and I had invested well early, and all that stuff just kept growing. Now I kept looking at it going, Okay, it's not going up, it's not going up, it's not going up. Right now, it's going up. Well, till the last 3 months. Okay. So when you put money into that initial 401k, you don't see a lot of return on it because it's a paltry 7%. Don't get discouraged. Leave it in there. Do not touch the money. Let it grow. Because when you start getting out 20, 25 years, that compounding is going to go haywire. In fact, so this is one I generated off it was a government website, so I have to question whether it's accurate, but it looks good. So the green line at the bottom, that's the money that you put in over time. If you put in the 23.5 from graduation to retirement. So you only ever put in, you know, like, bottom line's $500,000. You don't even put in $1 million in 48 years. So you put in something less than $1 million, but you end up with $8.4 million. That other 7.4 is all just compounded. Yes?
So when we're looking at, $75,000 a year, and you're talking earlier in your slides how, we might make 2,700, 3,000, and we'll probably expect to spend, 2,300. How do we fit maxing out a Roth IRA in that finances?
Okay, so that's why I did it as my tax return. My plan for my tax return was always pretty simple. I could put, it was like 6,000 at the time I could put into a Roth. Put what you can. So I put like the 6,000 in. I took the other 4,000. I made sure all the credit cards were paid off, and then I went out and bought myself a toy every year. So I bought my nice table saw one year. I bought my AR-15 one year. I bought stuff. Okay, I had a friend that died of cancer like 5 years after we got done with high school. So you gotta live a little bit. I mean, you can get all bound up in this planning for the future, but statistically in any population for somebody it's not coming. So live a little bit. Okay. And I would also say, get checkups. I ended up in the ER a couple years ago because of high blood pressure, grading too many papers. Okay? So take care of your health too. That was one that snuck up on me. I went to the dentist and she said, oh, your blood pressure is 170 over 100 and something. I'm like, yeah. Then I went home and my wife, the nurse, took my blood pressure and it was 220 over something else. And she dumps me in the car and says, don't stroke, don't stroke, don't stroke. The whole way we're going to the hospital, I'm like, you know how to be reassuring, girl. I mean, my blood pressure had been that for the last who knows how many years, so probably wasn't going to stroke, but I was going to do my level best not to.
Keep your hair.
What's that?
Keep your hair like old age.
Genetics. So the hair is kind of interesting. When I went in the military, I had chestnut brown hair. Actually, kind of your color. Oh. So I go over to Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and we're over there, and I just about wanted to shoot my lieutenant several times. It's not a good one. Fratricide is highly frowned upon. And then one day I grabbed the truck, the rearview mirror of my truck, and I turn it, and I'm all gray. It never went back. So I don't know, maybe there's something in those Kuwaiti oil fires or something, I don't know. But, yeah, keeping the hairline, that's just a family thing. My grandfather on my mother's side, he had a full head of hair right in his casket. I loved it. What else? Shoot.
How big a chunk of land do you need to be able to let the acre back to work?
So I got 35 acres, but I have it slopes up into almost a mountain, so I got a good backstop. So we got 35 acres at the house, we just bought another 34 that we're gonna retire on, and I got the adjacent 24